Hey guys, just finished week 6 of Grandmasters, and you know the drill. I'm gonna go over my lineup, what decks I brought, tech choices, etc., and kind of talk you through it. This week my opponents were Nalgudon and Eddie. I had a slight read that I was either gonna face something slow, i.e. Priest, maybe some Druid, or some more aggressive decks, because Nalgudon tended to favor some more aggressive decks such as Zoo, Demon Hunter, Warrior, and I still expected everyone to bring Warrior. So I tried to build a lineup that was going to leave Warrior up, and probably Demon Hunter as well, and maybe ban Giga aggressive decks. Or if people end up bringing something a bit slower, or something that punishes slower decks, i.e. Highlander, Hunter, or Rogue, I could ban one of those and still leave up Warrior, Demon Hunter, and try to beat those. I think it's easier to tech for Warrior and Demon Hunter right now instead of aggro as a whole, which is mostly just kind of Zoo, I guess, is the other deck, or Face Hunter. So I was going to focus on trying to beat Warrior, Demon Hunter, Priest if they end up bringing it, and some other slow decks I think this lineup could be fine against as well. But let's start going through it. I ended up bringing Quest Warlock, which I thought was very well placed. I think it's one of the best decks in the game right now. Very difficult to pilot, but I feel like the decision making you have in this really lets you get an edge on your opponents trying to plan out turns trying to plan out plays multiple turns in advance, knowing what your opponent can do and how to prepare for those. Now the mulligan for this is still kind of the same against every deck. You kind of want to find plot twists and questing explorers to get the cycle going. But this list I ended up bringing was heavily teched against weapon classes. Now both my opponents didn't end up bringing Demon Hunter, but still the uses that I have in here are very good, I think, against Warrior, and it helped at least a little bit in my matches. I've seen people run 2 Soulfires. I think it's a little greedy. I think if you play this deck well enough, you should be able to just kill them without double Soulfire. And I feel like it's a risk because you rely on double Soulfire Burst as a finisher. I feel like you don't have to use all of the removal, and you can save something like Another Breath or Rain of Fire to use with Malygos later on. A lot of people are also saying that you just need to hit 0 mana Malygos or Alex to win with this deck, and I feel like even if you don't hit either of these two, you can still end up winning games. Obviously there's clear high rolls that you can get, but I think you don't need to discount these two to win. I felt in practice this felt really good against Warrior. It was a little less good against Egg Warrior, but most people I think are bringing non-egg lists, and particularly against me, I thought my opponents bring more anti-priest lists, which tend to be Greenskin, Deathwing Deathwing Mad Aspect, and Grom. And against those decks, I think against those lists, this deck is pretty good. You have Dark Skies or Nether Breath to clear early minions, Crazed Netherwing to get on board, and I ended up having a Bone Wraith in case there were some Demon Hunters. I felt this helped a little bit against Demon Hunters, and even against Warriors, just at the end to tank some damage is fine. Some people running Abyssal Summoners, which I think might have been a better choice, but I haven't tested enough to know, and I thought I'd go with my instinct and include a more anti-aggressive card instead of Abyssal Summoner, which can also be an anti-aggressive card because it's a big old taunt. I tested a little bit with 2 Sense Demons. The first Sense Demons was always Giga Nutty. The second one ended up being really bad and clunky. And because of that, in the end, I ended on 1 Sense Demons. So I guess my flex cards you could say in here were the 2 Oozes and the Bone Wraith. I think almost everything else is core here. So there's 3-ish flex cards. Some people don't like 2 Questing Explorers. I think it's fine. You could cut down to 1, maybe put in a Blood Mage if you want some more spell damage. But I thought the Questing Explorers against the more aggressive lineup is good, and if it's a slower lineup anyways, then who cares if you're playing a Questing? It's just fine. You have enough time to find your combo. This deck got banned both matches, which I feel is a nod to how well positioned it was in my lineup and against what my opponents brought. Second up, Warrior, still a Giga Nutty deck. My list is a little bit different than some other people's. I expected Druid for my opponents as a possibility, and even against Warrior, I feel a 12-year Rampage start helps a lot, particularly against Druid, but against Priest it could be useful as well. Against Priest, I think you want Grom, double Korkron, which can help. I think Greenskin was an option as well, but because I was a little scared of Druid, I thought it would be better to stick to just 2 Raiders, 2 Risky Skippers to make sure I consistently draw the Pirates that I need off of Ankar so that I can clear the Glow Flag boards, or just consistently get Battle Rages off to get to my damage combos. Not going to talk too much about this because, I mean, we've been seeing Warrior for a while, so there's not a whole lot of new stuff here. I'll just explain why it was built this way this week. Mage, I thought was a little, from what I've read in stats and in practice, it felt wonky, but it was hard for me to find a fourth deck to fit my lineup well enough. I didn't particularly like Highlander Hunter. I wanted something that was good against Priest, like I've said, something that can be Druid as well, and that can still beat Warrior. And Mage, from the stats I've seen and in practice, felt like it did it, although it was kind of squeaking by in some situations. Obviously, one of the biggest ways you win is box. A couple of things to note in my list. I have Ooze as a tech card in here, and I have Forest and Shadow Weaver. Because I was expecting to leave up Warrior and Demon Hunter, I thought these two would be well positioned to help save me some health or stop some big swing turns from happening for my opponents. I notably cut Doomsayer, which I'm not sure the casters went over this, but I cut Doomsayer and I cut CMAT. I felt CMAT was a very great late game tool, but the games I usually win aren't because of CMAT. I felt it was big Dragon Caster turns, big Reno turns, and then having follow-up. And obviously CMAT is one of those follow-up cards, but otherwise it's really, really slow. Doomsayer just dies to Warmail Challenger, which doesn't feel great. So I felt it just wasn't worth bringing against Warrior. I'd rather have a card that does something most of the time than a card that doesn't do something a lot of the time. Even against Demon Hunter, sometimes they can still kill it early, and it's only good against Demon Hunter kind of on 2. If you go for Nova Doom, they can just ignore it, go face, or kill it and still stick a board. So I thought Doomsayer wasn't a great bring this week, based on what my bans were. Or based on what I was expecting to face. Now, granted, Doomsayer is better against Druid because it can set up to block Glowfly turns. But again, you need it exactly at the right moment, and I feel like in a Highlander deck, having that one card that only works in a specific situation isn't really that great. Sometimes it's okay for a board reset, like you wipe the board and then you Doomsayer, but I feel like against Druid that doesn't happen that often. How often do you have enough mana to completely clear the board and then Doomsayer as well? The one case for it is if you're going something like Nova Doomsayer, but if they know you're playing Doomsayer, they're not going to... They could still have cases where they have enough burst to kill it, or if they let their board go, they can still overflow and they still spend their mana that turn to, you know, get something going. So I didn't think Doomsayer was greatly positioned this week. I think those are the notable things. I brought Ooze, Shadow Weaver, and excluded Doomsayer CMAT, because the list is very tight, so it was very hard to make switches. I really didn't like cutting CMAT, but I felt like I needed to do something to be a bit better against Warrior and Demon Hunter, trying to take this risky leave up Warrior Demon Hunter approach. And finally, Highlander Priest. I made some changes since I submitted it last week. You'll note I cut Psychic Conjurer. Did I have Psychic Conjurer last week? I think I did. Anyways, Bone Shore Brawler, as I've said before, I like this better than Tol'Vir. Tol'Vir is better against Rogue, but Bone Shore Brawler is really good against Warrior. You play it on curve, they Warmail Challenger into it, the Warmail Challenger dies. It hits it once, it goes up to 4 attack, it hits it again, it goes up to 6 attack, and it kills the Warmail Challenger on the 3rd hit. And if they just play a Sky Raider, you play this, they don't have a weapon, you bump, you heal it, it's a 4/3. Now it contests Bomb Girls, Bomb Wranglers, and some of the other minions. So I think Bone Shore Brawl is fine. Has some synergy with Ahmet, which is nice too. So yeah, I like the Bone Shore Brawler. I still have Ooze Harrison, which is similar to what I was running on ladder because I was going to leave up both Warrior and Demon Hunter. I think last week I was planning on banning Warrior, in which case it doesn't make sense to have 2 weapon removals. I think last week I had a Frozen Shadow Weaver perhaps instead. But otherwise, this list hasn't changed too much from what I had on ladder because what I expected to leave up is kind of the same things I'm facing on ladder. I think this is a little favored against Galakon Priest. It didn't show too much in my match against Nalgadon though, in the mirror match. But I mean, that happens. The Priest mirror is very volatile, so it's kind of hard to say, oh, you know, this is favored. That being said, I also don't have, 50 games in the mirror, so it's hard for me to say that. Maybe I'm a little biased, but I feel like it performs very well against Warrior, very well against Demon Hunter. And one unique thing about this is that you can actually beat Quest Warlock and Druid with this because you actually have tempo game plans available. You'll see me keep stuff like Ahmet and Dark Prophecy very often against these decks because you actually have ways to build enough health that they can't remove your minions. You can actually pressure them to a point where it disrupts their turns or where you can get a really nutty Zephyrus Bloodlust lethal, which happens. Not as often as you think, but it still happens. You don't often see Priest killing Druid or Warlock on turn 6, 7, 8, but I've had it before where you just kill them. And if you don't, you still have tools where you can try to come back against them, against some of the stuff they have. You still run AoE against Druid, Soul Mirror stuff. There's definitely ways to take it long game, but there's also a very clear tempo game plan, which is kind of what Highlander decks do in general, right? The benefit of Priest as a Highlander deck is that you have the tempo game plan, but you also have powerful Priest removal that does line up well against the meta. So yeah, I don't think I mentioned actually, I did go 2-0 this week, so my score is 4-1. I have 2 matches left next week to wrap up round robin, but I think with a 4-1 score, even if I lose my next 2 games, I should be in the top half of Division A, which means I should be guaranteed for playoffs, which means I have a 1 in 8 chance to go to Worlds. So that'll be nice. But still, I'm going to try my best next week and get you guys a video for that as well. As always, smash that subscribe button. It helps. I also have links to my Twitter below and my Twitch channel, I think. Also, the deck codes are below as well. A nice little handy link to Yay tiers. Otherwise, see you guys next time. Thanks for hanging out.